Okay, so this video is going to look through the sources about Athenian religion. So it's going to be a small section of the old oligarch, then Isocrates, Pausanias, who's not the king from the first Peloponnesian War, by the way, different one, and Xenophon. Okay, so this video is going to be particularly short, as these particular sections in the source book are nice and small, you'll be pleased to know. So we have this really small extract from the old oligarch, and there's literally a couple of lines in here that are quite useful. So it starts with, then there is the question of sacrifices, offerings, festivals and sanctuaries. So that shows the nature of Athenian religion. The common people are aware that individually the poor are quite unable to sacrifice and feast, to erect temples or to build a great and beautiful city, but they have found a means of achieving this end. Publicly, as a city, they frequently make sacrifices, so again it's showing the importance of religion to the Athenians. But it is the common people as individuals who enjoy the feasts who are allotted a share in the offerings. Some of the rich possess gymnasia, baths and dressing rooms for their private use, I should say, for their private use. But the common people build themselves many palaestrias, dressing rooms and public baths for their own use, and the rabble get more benefit from this than the wealthy minority. So you could pick up some of this about participation, showing that the poor, ordinary citizens sort of benefit the most from the democracy because the rich are paying for everything, but it needs a bit of explanation to go with it. Essentially, this little bit of the old oligarch is quite useful for showing us the nature of Athenian religion, which is they have sacrifices and offers and festivals, they build lots of temples, and it's all part of the calendar. So then we move on to a short section from Isocrates. So in the case of the gods too, those who bring us good are called Olympians, so they're the famous gods of the Greek religion, whereas those who control disasters and punishments have less pleasant names. There is a name for them, we'll go through it in class, but essentially there are two sets of gods. There's the ones they worship openly, and there's ones they're slightly afraid of. So the former, as in the Olympians, have altars and temples dedicated to them, hence why they're both in yellow, and then the latter are not honoured by prayer or sacrifice, we simply take steps to avert them. So, we'll go through this in lesson properly, but essentially we have this idea that there's two sets of gods that the Greeks, also the Athenians, are worshipping. You've got the Olympians at the top of Olympus, so Zeus, Athena, etc. And then you've got those who live underground, essentially, who the Athenians were slightly more fearful of. Then we have a few sections of Pausanias. So like I bumbled through in the introduction, it's not the same Pausanias who was a king of Sparta at the end of the second Peloponnesian War. It is a different guy. This guy is a geographer. You will notice for this section here that bit is deleted. So in your source book, if you're looking at it, you'll probably notice that these three lines are the same as these up here. That's just an error on my part from editing, so my apologies. Anyway, going for Pausanias then. The Athenians have two dedications from the tithe of war spoil, so that's the tribute. One is a bronze statue of Athena Promachos, derived from the Persian landing at Marathon. So a lot of Athenian buildings and temples are built on the basis of sort of Athenian propaganda, we're the best, we beat the Persians, we're incredible. And they used a lot of the spoils they got after the Persian War to do a lot of their building work. So this statue of Athena Promachos is one of these examples. They say that the engraving of the Battle of Lapis and Centaurs was on the shield. So this is all, again, symbolic of the Persian War. And the rest of the relief work was done by, I think it's Maius, I don't know how to pronounce that name, to the designs of Parrhasius, son of Evenor. Yeah, I'm sure you're fascinated to learn that. The spear point and helmet crest of this Athena can actually be seen by people sailing from Sunium. So what we have here is the fact that this statue is humongous and it's quite intimidating, and also shows that Athena is sort of controlling maybe some allies that will be coming into the city, because the moment you turn up in Athens you can see them. And it talks about how it's being Phidias' main work. Okay. So he carries on describing the Acropolis. So one enters a temple called the Parthenon. Everything on the pediment bears upon the birth of Athena. So the pediments are the sort of triangular square bits near the triangles. You see my mouse drawing it for you. The other end is the quarrel of Poseidon with Athens. Dear me, sorry. I would have spotted that should say Athena over the country. So again, the Parthenon is a symbol of the importance of Athena and Poseidon. Obviously, Athena is one of the goddesses of war, and wisdom, and she always protects Athens. Poseidon is the god of the sea, and also Athens has got a naval empire, so it's not surprising that these two particular gods were really important to the Athenians. The statue itself is made of ivory and gold, so clearly very important, otherwise they would not have spent quite so much money on it and wealth on it. And then it says on the helmet there's a sphinx and some griffins on either side of it. And then the source continues, the statue of Athena is upright with a tunic reaching to the feet. On her breast the head of Medusa is worked in ivory. If you know the story of Medusa, Athena is linked to it and had cursed Medusa, I believe for being raped, off the top of my head. I'd have to double check that story. What we do have, though, is this particular statue of Athena sadly no longer exists, and it stood in the middle of the Parthenon, and it was humongous. And it was quite literally covered in jewels. So it says ivory and gold here. There was supposedly almost like rubies on it as well. It was highly, highly decorated. And remember, the Parthenon is also where they put the tribute from the allies into as well for safekeeping. So it kind of shows this kind of religious and political importance of Athena. The fact that she's honoured so strongly, and the fact that it's tied in with the tribute and then the empire shows kind of her role within Athens as well as one as protector. So and to emphasise this point, she holds a statue of victory. So again, Athens also very victorious, very powerful as a result of it, about 4 cubits high. On the other hand, a spear. At her feet lies a shield, and near the spear is a serpent. The serpent would be Acrothonius. On the pedestal is the birth of Pandora in relief. Hesiod and others have sung how this Pandora was the first woman. Before Pandora was born, as it known about womankind. The only portrait statue I remember seeing here was one of the Emperor Hadrian. So this tells you when this guy's writing, like significantly after the time of the Athenians. Because if you're talking about the Emperor Hadrian, I mean, he's not until sort of a couple of centuries AD. So we're talking, a while after. And anyway, he's still describing what it looks like, because it's no interest to us. Our last little source, I told you this video is going to be short, is just a short section from Xenophon. So Socrates was accused in a trial of basically blasphemy and sort of forcing the youth to abandon the gods, etc. So Xenophon was one of his pupils, and he's basically defending Socrates in this particular section of the book. So he says that in fact he introduced nothing new. So Socrates wasn't challenging religion any more than people who believe in divination make use of omens and sacrifices. They do not suppose that the birds or the people they chance to meet know what is good for the oracle seekers. Rather that the gods use such things to indicate their intentions. This is what Socrates thought too. So he's not challenging religion, he's just as religious as any other Athenian, and the idea that he's going to be challenging it is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that Socrates was put on trial for sort of criticising, not criticising religion, but for blasphemy, shows that religion was really important to the Athenians, and that will become useful to you later when we talk about Socrates and his trial. And that is it for the sources on religion.